ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ
Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the One Infinite channel. We are present here with a very important topic that we would like to consider for you and with you, and that is the topic of Kirt Karni. Kirt Karni, across the Sikh world, in camps, in books, by our Vicharvan and Kathavachak, pretty much everywhere we look on the websites, we find Kirt Karni as being presented as a very, very important part and parcel of Sikhi. It has been talked about as one of three pillars of Sikhi. And we, in light of Gurbani, are challenging that notion. And we will present that evidence to you and invite you to consider whether or not what we have been breathing in, this air, this notion of Kirt Karni, does it stand up to scrutiny when the lens of Gurbani is applied to it? Now, as you can see, Sikh Wiki, all about Sikhs, the Sikh Dharma International, all of them proudly proclaim that Kirt is one of three pillars of Sikhi. Now, we will present evidence otherwise, and we will show that Kirt has largely been misunderstood because people are not looking into Gurbani to find the answers. And Gurbani shows us the way, that Kirt is not the recommended course of action for the Jeev, which is us. Now, let us lay our agenda bare. What we will look at is, where do our ideas of Kirt come from? We won't spend a whole lot of time on this, honestly. But what we will look at is, what is Kirt in Gurbani? And this is not about mere opinions. We will look for proof. And that is exactly what we will present. Now, you might be thinking, is this important? It is, if you wish to live your life guided by Gurbani. And here is a hint. We want you to beware. What you learn may transform your life. So let's get ready. But as we do that, let's also share a second bit of agenda that we have. It is that by watching this video today, if your interest is piqued, then please start your own research of Gurbani and to learn the concept of Sikhi from Gurbani. Prove to yourself the veracity of this inquiry and what we are claiming. Whatever we have found, does it stand up to scrutiny? You can prove that to yourself. And once you find that it does, please help spread the word. And if we have erred in any way, please help us improve. What we hope is, by this Khoj of Gurbani, of the Sach, that we will be armed with spiritual wisdom. And in that way, our thought process is one that is no longer weak, but in fact it becomes unassailable, and our actions resonate and are resonant with the enlightened thought process. What happens in Japji is the Ehran Mat Ved Hatiyar Pao Khallan Agan Tap Tao. That has import to our life. We are to be directed such. So let's look for Gurmat from Gurbani. But just a quick couple of minutes on where we may be getting our ideas of Kirt Karni as one of three pillars of Sikhi. Now, why is this important? First of all, a structure needs pillars for its roof to stand. And the roof, if we look at it internally, is the higher point of the house, of the home. And if the pillar is not sound, then the roof is not sound, the building is not sound. Could it be that that is one of the major reasons why we find that Sikhs are struggling across the world? Our life does not exemplify the beauty and the loftiness, the bhakti of the Gur Sahiban, the Bhagat that are, and their testimony is within Gurbani. And partially, I would point to two sources here. Sikhs continue to call work is worship as a part and parcel of Sikhi. But we will submit that that is a borrowed notion. In the West, it is borrowed from the Protestant and Calvinist work ethic, which is a Puritan way of looking at the world and closer to the South Asian context. It is part and parcel of quote-unquote Hinduism and the Varnashram Dharam, in which the focus is on responsibilities. What kind of responsibilities, one might think? When people are being divided into certain castes, they are straight-jacketed, not only in their own life, but of their progeny. Those that are to come after them have no freedom of movement and upward mobility. Why is that happening? And they are being told that is their dharam, that they are to follow that, to fulfill that. And if they do that, they are successful. And what they do by that is to naturally fulfill the rights of others. This is very key. Where would this come from? One has to wonder. And a big reason would be, if the system were to function this way, the people who would benefit most are the people at the top. And Gurbani talks about Nicha andar neech zaat, Nichi hoon at neech. So the lowest of the lowly. It is with them that Guru Nanak stands. It is not with the highest. So this concept of work is worship really needs to be contextualized in the mat of Nanak Sahib, which is really Parmeshwar ki mat, right? That is what Nanak is espousing. It is not Nanak di mat. We are not Nanakians. This is Sikhi, and the Guru is Parmeshwar. So we will take our guidance from that and not from these borrowed notions of the work ethics that come from the straitjacketing of people and their spirit within so-called Hinduism, within the Varnashram Dharam, or within the Puritan work ethic prevalent in the West, where in the most powerful quote-unquote country in the world, the wealthiest country in the history of humankind, people work more and enjoy life less, and the quality of life is worse than in many other places, many other developed countries in the world. That is a problem, and it comes from this mindset. So, let's look at the different forms of Kirt in Gurbani. And as you can see, there are 9 different forms in which Kirt occurs in Gurbani. 3 of them are major, because the rest only occur once or very little, and we can sort of put that aside because they occur in very specific contexts. So we will come to these 3, which are less than 40 times, and together it's less than 80 times or so. However, what is important is we can get a tenor of the concept of Kirt from diving into these. So without further ado, let's look at our first one, which is Kirt with the tatta as mukta. Now, what I would like to show you here, what we would like to show you here, is that the meaning is fairly consonant. It ranges across. The grammatical systems may differ, the different forms might be there. However, there is a message that is unifying, and that is what we would like to share with you today. So, going quickly over this first aspect, it says, Kirt kamavan shub ashub, kine tini aap, pashu, apan hon kare, nanak, bin hari, kahan kamat. And lob, avaman, bude, they are drowning in their greed and their self-centeredness. Maran cheet na ave, because they do not remember their own impermanent self. Putra, mitra, byohar banta, e kart behave. Within their own family and their relations, the bodily relations, they spend their whole lifetimes. Kirt karam namita, Nanak, Harinam tan khatya. Thing to note here is the color coding. You will find that where the message is in red shading, the Kirt is in red shading, the message is a negative one. And you will find that at the end of it, in this yellowish orange color, the tinge to it, that is where the source of where this Bani comes from, within the Pothi Sahib, is written. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward. Kirt kamane, dukh sukh prani, anek joni pramaya, महामोहनी संग राता, रतन जन्म गवाया. एक से हरि के नाम बाजों, आन काज सियाणी, बिनवंत नानक लेख लिखिया, परमे मोहे लुभाणी. Now, the Panjve Pasha, Guru Arjan Sahib, is talking to us about Kirt, and what he is being very explicit about is where our time is being spent and in what form. What is our purpose in life? Where are we spending our invaluable time? This Ratan Janam, we are wasting it. Ratan Janam Gavaya. How? Because Maha Mohani Sangi Rata. Rata is to spend much of our time being engrossed. Ratya hona, Rata. Mahamoni, to the mega alluring, which is a reference to Maya. We are caught within that trap and we are wasting our life away. And that is a reference to the Kirt Karni, which gives us dukh, gives all the prani dukh. And that is the reason that leads us to the anik joni pramaya, to the cycle of what is called the transmigration, the birth and death, which is the repetition of our misery, of us being in the same situations over and over again and not getting rid of the pain that we would like to get rid of in order to have the sukh that we seek, which is union, the jog with the one. The oneness is what we are looking for. And what was important here is ikse hari ke naam bajho aan kaj siani. We spend much of our time in the world getting expertise, getting quote-unquote educated, go to institutions. We spend a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of aggravation in order to become experts so that we can earn money. And the more money, the better, everyone tells us. So, aan kaj siani, that means we are spending and expending so much effort of our life in becoming siane in all types of work except the one that is important. Ikse hari ke naam bajho. And naam, as any of you who've spent any time at Gurbani would know, that hari ke naam, Ram naam, Har naam, these are extremely important concepts. These are the things to be engaged in, which is the internal gyan, the internal wisdom. When we look, manat nu jot saroop hai, apna mool pachan, when we need to recognize who we really are and where we come from, our source. And that is what the reference is here. But again, the reference that I wanted you to be aware of is that the kirt is coming in a negative context. In two of these three, the first one was inconclusive, where it talked about shubh, ashubh, kine tini aap. And the references to tin are always to the higher self, which is the mool, call it the one. Sakat, mool maya ke badhik, vich maya phireh phirande. The first thing to understand here is in Gurbani, when it refers to phireh, phirande, jede phirde ne, gwache phirde ne, it is to the ones who are lost. It is not to ones who are wise or know where they're going or where they're coming from. It is phireh, phirande, o gwache phirde ya. Te sakat mood ne, murakh ne, e maya de badhik, they are tied up in maya. These fools. So trishna jalat, they are burning in their yearnings for more and more. Kirt ke badhe. Trishna jalat kirt ke badhe. Again, notice that they were maya ke badhik and kirt ke badhe. That gives us our first stark clue that kirt has to do with maya. Kirt ke badhe are burning in this mayic existence. Jo teli bald pavande, like one would burn in oil. Ik aave hain jaave hain, kari vaas na paave hain. There are these types of people, this category of people. Ik aave hain jaave hain, the ones that come and go. They're not at home. They are coming and going. Kari vaas na paave hain. Kirt ke bandhe, paap kamaave hain. Because they are tied up in kirt, and they are earning. They are what they're getting out is a propensity to constantly miss the mark. And that's a reference to paap. Sikhi does not necessarily have the types of paap, like the sin, the concept of sin that a lot of people ascribe to. Even the higher forms of Christianity, they understand that it has more to do with missing the mark, which really has to know with when you're aiming for where you are coming, when you know where you're coming from and where you're headed, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨਾ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ. You know where you are headed because the path is informed and it's leading you to where you need to get to, the purpose of your existence, not necessarily what your wants are, but rather what your need is to get to. And this is because we do not know. We are blind. Andule, sojhi, bujh na kai. Lob bura ahankara hai. Because in our greed and our ignorance, we have not understood. We have not spent the time to understand. Sanu soji nahi hai, bujh nahi hai. We have not solved the riddle. The pieces are not fitting together. When we are blind not because our eyes are blind, but because we cannot see. We cannot understand. It is those eyes that Gurbani is referring to. And again, very negative for Kirt. I will move on because you can do your own research in this and look to see the consonants that we are pointing to. So what are some of the lessons that come from this first form of Kirt? Who is engaged in it? It is the Sakat, mood, Pashu, the animal. The fool, the animal, and the blind is engaged in Kirt. What is their scope of operation? Well, ਉਹ ਮਾਇਆ ਕੇ ਬੱਧੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ, ਉਹ ਮਾਇਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੱਧੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ, ਮਾਇਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰੰਦੇ. Their operation is within Maya and out of the Mayic outlook. Mahamohani sangrata marana chitna ave. Soji bujh na kai. This is their space of operation. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੋਜੀ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੁੱਝਿਆ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੁੱਝਿਆ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ. Japji starts with ਹੁਕਮ ਨੂੰ ਬੁੱਝਣਾ, but ਇੱਥੇ ਤਾਂ ਬੁੱਝਿਆ ਕੱਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ. We're not understanding anything that we need to be doing. All our doings are misinformed. What is the problem? Well, while we are kirt ke badhe, what we are earning, kirt kamane, is negative. Is kirt karam na mita. This is the karam that is not going to get wiped out. What we are earning is paap. We are missing the mark constantly. That is what we are earning. Ik aave jaave karvaas na paave. And if you notice, every single word that we have here is from the Bani that we shared with you. So here is a test. And here's how we can test whether this shows up in our life and when we look around and if we find it disappointing that people, even Sikhs who were to lead the way for the world, we are not exemplifying that. So do these hallmarks reflect the lives that we call our own or of those around us? So let's look at it. Karte paap anek, constantly missing the mark. Trishna jalt, are we burning in desires in more and more, yearning for things? Apan ho kare, do we find that we are fighting over things? Maybe it's the Gurdwara stage. Maybe it is to lead this or to lead that or to have people follow us. Or this is mine, that is not mine. This is yours and we want more and more and dispossess others. Apan ho kare. Lob, abhiman, buddhe, are we drowning in this greed? Dukh so prani, do we find sorrow in our life? If sorrow is not in the lives of those who claim to be Sikhs, would they be dealing in the superstitions of walking nange pari to Gurdwara, doing so many paat, sitting there doing vaheguru for hours and hours, giving money to institutions to try to buy some sukh, some peace? Karte bhog bilasa. Now this has multiple connotations. Some of them could be bodily or sexual, but really it is about consuming what is there to be consumed. And we are, aren't we, engaged in worldly pleasures? constantly. Overconsumption. The Fauj, the Khalsa Fauj, sometimes look like we've been killing a lot of Kyode teen rather than being in service of humanity and coming to the aid of those who might need it. Ikkis Hari ke naam bajo aan kaaj syani. What we value as the worldly six these days is the expertise that this person is a CEO, that person is a millionaire and a billionaire perhaps. We are looking up to worldly success as a measure and not Hari ke naam. That is what Gurbani is leading us to. But we are looking at An God Syane. We want to be Syane. We want to be known. We want to be the experts. We want to be followed. And that is what we are looking to. Let's look at the second form of Kirt. आवे जाए पवाइये पये किरत कमाए पूरब लिखिया क्यों मिटी है लिखिया लेख रजाए बिन हर नाम ना छूटी है गुरमती मिले सजाए. So rather than going into the every word here, what we want here is for you and your attention to be on what are we getting out of this kirt. And the last line makes it clear. Gurmati mile sazaye. That we are punished according to the enlightened wisdom, the enlightened thought process. That tells us how and why we are being punished. Because in life, when we find our suffering, it is because our kamai is of kirt. Paye kirt kamai. And that is why we are lost and asi aa rahe hain te ja rahe hain. Aave jaye pavaiye. Paye kirt kamai. And whatever we sow, so shall we reap. Purab likhya kyun miti hai? How? Cause and effect. We cannot find a way. There is no get out of jail free card. Our actions lead to the effect that we will have to suffer. And that is the lake. And the next one talks about hukam. Hukme karam kamavne paya kirt phirao. Hukme darshan dekhna jai bheje hain tah jaओ. Hukme har hare mani vasa. Hukme sach samao. Hukam na jane hain bappude. See, this is important again. We do not know because we are being called bappude. Look it up. Pule phire hain gawar. The ignorant are lost and they are wandering. Man hathe karam kamavde. अपने मन दे हठ करके कर्म कमाਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ मन दे हठ ਦੇ through कर्म कमाਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ. It is in our stubbornness. We do not want to learn. And that is why every single day nit hoye khwar, we are losing and we are suffering. And we are repeating this cycle. Rinse and repeat the suffering every day. Antar shant na ave. We do not find peace within. Na sach lagge pyar. And that authentic love of the oneness, the peace. See, when there is nirpaho and there is nirvair, there is peace. But when we have vair and when we have fear and enmity, there is no peace. Na sach lagga pyar. Kirt karam ke vichode, kar kirpa milo ram, char kunt deh dese prame. Thak aaye prab ki sam. So again, we are wandering here and there. And asi kirt karam ke vichde. We are separated from whom? From our source, which is our mool. We are separated from that. And kar kirpa milo ram. Because Ram is the one that ramya hoya har jagah te. That is our, the Puran Brahm. The mool that is within, that we are to unite with. Our self, which is our man, which is outward facing, and then there is also a half man which is inward facing. When those two unite with the mool within, that is when we are whole and complete within ourselves, and we get what is called the two of the four padarth that Gurbani talks about. But that's a separate topic. But while we do that, and while we are lost, bahut jonni pavhe tur kirt likhyasa. Jaisa bijen, taisa khasa. Whatever we sow, so shall we reap, and that's what we have to consume. But again, I think it should be fairly obvious by now that the tenor here is negative. Now, you may find very small instances, very few instances, where it is inconclusive or positive, and we'll share that with you. However, most of them is a very negative context for kirt in which it comes in. So in kirt with the tatte nu sihari, how does that come? Who is engaged in this kirt? Well, kirt karam ke vichode, the manmukh, the bappude, the gawar. None of those are positions and being that are alluring. They are quite insulting. That is what we would like to think of others, but really that is our way of being, because if it weren't, the state of the panth would not be as it is. What is their space of operation? Well, chare kunt deh dis prame, bahut jonni pav hai, ave jaye pavaiye. So what is the problem? Well, they're engaged in doings. Karam kare, par kirti kamavein. And what do they get out of that? Par kirti. Gurmati mila sazaye. They are punished. Because e relai ni ralde. And vin mana je hori naal lujjana. Besides our man. If we are fighting anything other than that, if we are engaged in other than that, jasi janam gavaye, this life will be wasted. But in our ignorance, we are foolhardy, manhat, stubborn. But we do not understand hukam. We have not recognized hukam. So again, the hallmarks of such a life. Paya kirt kamaye. Purab likhya kyon meti hai? How will that get wiped out? Bin harinam na chutti hai. Man mukhi manhat harya, and kood kusit kamaye. Another hallmark is these folks nit hoye khwar, constantly suffering. Again, remember, these are the same types of hallmarks which were there when the tatta had no matra on it. So that didn't change much. Pule phire, they're lost. And they're stubborn. The final version of kirt. Kirt paya ad urdhi bin gyan bichara bin upma jagdish ki bin sena andhyara. Again, in the dark, andhyara. These people are half-baked. Kirt paya ad urdhi. It is because of our doings, what we are engaged in this invaluable life, is without wisdom. This is internal wisdom. This is not about whether I know math or science or other things. This is bin gyan bichara, because we have not engaged in vichar of the internal gyan, which is the Gurbani sphere. Je hari hari ki chain bahut lochi hai, kirt na metya jaye. Hari ka pahna pagti mannaya, se pagat pe dar thaye. So, what are these people engaged in? They are sitting there going hari, hari. Now, in Sikhs, you will find not a lot of people going hari, hari. Our favorite one is Vaheguru, Vaheguru. So, substitute that here. Je Vaheguru, Vaheguru ki che bahut lochi hai, kirt na metya jaye. I'm sorry to tell those people who have fallen again for borrowed knowledge and not seeked their wisdom from within Gurbani, that is not how we are going to get rid of our errors and our missing the mark constantly. That is going to happen, je hari ka pahna pagti mannaya, because we need to engage in pagti. Pahna mannana hari ka, se pagat pe dar thaye. Tha hirde kar de vich, in our home, in the darbar, we will find the tha, the izzat and respect, self-respect, when we are engaged in that love, not in engaging in a repetition of any word. Kirt nindakka turhi paya. Now this is a very strong word. I think everyone is familiar with the nindak and ninda. Well, this is associated with our kirt. Mitra, my friend, mat pita sut het. मात पिता सुत नेक नेरा, माया मोह सबाई, संजोगी आया, किर्त कमाया, करनी कार कराई. All that we are engaged in with our friends, with our relatives, with our loved ones, mother, father, and friends, all of that is happening within this category of kirt. And we are earning things that are not going to help us. Kirt paya nindak bapreka again. Mau piu kirt gavayin tabbar rovan tahi. Tabbar is a family, is going to be left crying because of what we are earning through our kirt. Again, kirt paya na mita koe kya jana kya aage hoye. How do we know what will happen? Agge jaake. Kya jana kya aage hoye. Because actually we do know. Because it's what we're earning. That is what we get. It's not a question. It's a rhetorical statement. So let's look at the third one. Who is engaged in it? It is a half-baked, the one who has half the knowledge. Ad urdi, bin gyan bichara, nindak bapure bichara. Who is in the space of operation is darkness because lacks wisdom. That's the problem. And our families don't help us either because they too are lost. And let's look at it. What is the hallmark? Sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. Is that not how our life is? Mau piu kirt gavayan tabbar rovan tahi. Do we not have our families suffering the same types of problems? And each of us are crying and whining about the same types of problems? Because we have not taken guidance from the Gurmat. Maat pita sut nek nera. We are spending our time and devoted to our physical relatives. Maya mo sabai. To that which is impermanent, the Maya. And that is what we are caught within and spending all our time in. And Hari Hari ki chai bahut lochi hai. There's a lot of us. There's a trend of people sitting around repeating words thinking that will solve their problem. It will not. No word has ever cured a disease unless one does the kamai and goes through what is needed. So let's put it all together. And I think you get a pretty solid notion of who is engaged in kirt. It is the manmukh, the gavar, the sakat, the pashu, the animal, the blind, those who lack wisdom, the nindak, the bapure. By the way, the rara and the rara are interchangeable in Gurbani. And we wanted to put that together to show you. Bichara. And kirt karam ke vichode. It is because of their deeds that they are separated from their mool, which is, again, what we seek in life is our oneness with the mool. And we are not in that state of oneness because our space of operation is darkness, andhara. And we are caught within Maya, the Mahamohani Sangarata. That is where our time is being spent. We do not remember that we are impermanent. This body is just a kapda. It's impermanent. We do not have the soji. Bhuj nakai. We have not put things together. Chare kunt dehadisiprame. We are going here and there looking for God-men and so-called saints to find this wisdom. But it was always available within us. And it can be verified by Gurbani. If we were courageous enough to look. Bahut jonni pavai, aave jaye pavai hai. So, what is the problem? Well, there are many, of course. But first off, it's our stubbornness. It's the man hat. And our misapplication of focus. It is all towards our family, towards our bodily relations. Mat pita sut ne kanera. The dense love that we have for our physical blood relatives. We are caught in the animalistic sense of self. We are tied up in this concept of kirt, which is our work, our vocation, our jobs, what we are doing in life, which is really to keep this kapda alive, this body, so that it can do what it's here to do. But what are we earning? What is our kamai? It is only of our work. An kaj syaniya. It is we have earned syanapan of what? Of ankaj, forgetting what is important. All other things, that is where our time is being spent. And karam kare, And par kirti kamawe, paap kamawe hain, gurmati mile sazaye. We are missing the mark, and that is the reason for our suffering. And bin gyan bichara, hukam na jana hai. Kithe aande jande ne, aave jaave, karwas na paave. We do not find our home. We do not reside within. We are always outside from with our indriyant, the sensual being grasya hoya in sensual pleasures. Iralaya narale. Even if one were to attempt to get us into truth, into truthful being, into an authentic self and being, it is not happening, because our fight is with anything but the man. Vin mana je huri naal lujna jasi janam gavaye. And again, you could go through this because we've already done that. The hallmarks of such a life are pretty evident. It's the sorrows and the paap. That's what we have. The ups and the downs. Isn't that the hallmark of our life? This is kind of a human being's life. Animalistic. Karte bhog bilasa. Procreating. Consuming. That is what we are engaged in. And as much as we are crying, our parents and our progeny will be crying because we are not learning. This cycle is broken only if we learn and are guided by the Gurmat. So, what is the result of all this? Ratan Janam Gavaya. We lost, and we continue to lose this fabulous opportunity. Anik Jonni Pramaya. Because we find ourselves constantly lost and reliving the same cycle. It is a vicious cycle. What we need is to break it and get into a virtuous cycle. And Gurbani shows us how to do that. So, can Kirt be defined? Good news! It certainly can. And the Tije Pasha, Guru Amar Das, on page 87 in Shri Rag, tells us, and this is all, by the way, from one pada. And he puts forth the problem, which is manmukh lok samjhaiye. Kadon samjhaya jaye? Manmukh ralaya na ralaya. Paye kirt phiraye. This is the problem. Ki o kirt vichi paya phirda paya, is gwacha, is lost within the kirt, the worldly, the mayak kirt. Or ralaya vi nahi ralda. Even if we attempted to. That's the problem. But there is a choice and a recommendation. Live taat doe raah hain. Hukmi kar kamaye. The live, which is internal connection with the mool, with the source. And the taat, which is the substantive, the material, which is the outside, which is the mayak khed. Those are the two choices. These are the two paths. One is outside and one is within. Live taat doe raah hain. Hukmi kar kamaye. And we, again, cause and effect, we will get the effect of whatever we're engaged in. Gurmukhi. Apna man marya. Shabdi kasvatti laye. And this is the path. This is the recommendation of Guru Amar Das. It is that the Gurmukh, the one that is facing the wisdom, apne man nu marda, addresses the man and puts it down. And Shabdi kasvatti laye, how it measures its own self and its success, is through the kasvatti of the Shabad. That is the measure. What is the battlefield? Man hi naal chagda. Man hi naal sath. Our friendship and our fight is with the man. Man hi manj samaye. Man jo ichhe so leh. Sacha shabdi subaye. Amrit naam sad punchiye. Gurmukhi kar kamaye. And that is what is our sustenance. It is the Amrit Naam. It is the Ram Naam. It is the Harika Naam. That is what is our sustenance, and that will help us escape the sorrows that we wish to escape and have the sukh, the peace of union that we want, the oneness which will provide that union. And it also refers to futile distractions. Vinamana, besides our man, ਜੇ ਹੋਰੀ ਨਾਲ ਲੁੱਝਣਾ, if we are caught up with other things, ਜਾਸੀ ਜਨਮ ਗਵਾਏ, we will be wasting our life. But the ਮਨਮੁਖੀ ਮਨ ਹਠ ਹਾਰਿਆ, through our stubbornness, we continually lose. And what do we earn? What do we get out of it? Is good, kusat, is the ephemeral, the transitory, the impermanent, the superficial. The kusat is the fall truth, which is what Maya is. That is what we get. That is what we earn. And so the recommendation of Tije Pasha and the path to solution is Gur Prasadi Man Jina. We need ਮਨ ਤੋਂ ਜੋਤ ਸਰੂਪ ਹੈ, ਆਪਣਾ ਮੂਲ ਪਛਾਣ, ਤੇ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਜੇ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਣਾਂਗੇ, ਜਾਣਾਂਗੇ, ਸਾਡਾ ਪਰਚਾ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਮਨ ਨਾਲ. ਪਰਚੈ is to get to know. Gur Prasadi, it is actually the bakshish. We can do the work, but Gur Prasad is the bakshish. ਮਨ ਜਣੈ ਹਰੀ ਸੇਤੀ ਲਿਵ ਲਾਏ, and ਨਾਨਕ ਗੁਰਮੁਖੀ ਸੱਚ ਕਮਾਵੇ. And again, notice chacha has a ਔਂਕੜ. This is the ਕਾਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ. ਉੱਥੋਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੱਚ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਮਾਣਾ ਹੈ. Otherwise, ਮਨਮੁਖੀ ਆਵੇਂ ਜਾਏ. And this is the definition in one pada. So you must be wondering, I know we mentioned a lot of the negatives of Kirt. Weren't there any positive aspects of Kirt? Well, yeah. So let's bring those up as well, because you may have been wondering about that. So Re Man, Hey Man, again, the conversation is with the Man. Aisi harisyon preet kar, jaisi chatrik mein. Chatrik, the bird, comes in Gurbani many times, and it's a beautiful allegory, beautiful metaphor. It seeks this one drop of rain, and it is in love, undying love of this one drop of rain. Well, that, hey man, aisi harisyon preet kar, with your mool, be in love like that chatrik bird. Sar pari thal hari avle, our life, which is not like a green tree. It is not, there is no hariyavali in our life. We are not vibrant and glowing and growing. Ik boond na pavai ke, karmi mila so paiya, kirt paya sir de. No, over here it's somewhat positive. But notice that it's positive because aisi harisyon preet kar was the context. That is what made it positive. Otherwise, the Kirt concept would have been fairly negative. So let's wrap it up, because I was advised to keep the video short. So what am I to do? Is there a Gurmat alternative? What are we going to replace Kirt Karni with? We got a pillar missing. That pillar is gone, baby. What are we going to do with that pillar? Because we're holding up the structure with 3 pillars of Sikhi. And I think we fairly conclusively removed Kirt as one of them. So there is good news. For actions that are recommended by Gurbani, there is an other option. It is not Kirt. And for that, we will have another video for you. And we hope that you will watch and engage. And if you found anything in this video, or by the way, you could go to our YouTube channel and subscribe so that you will know, well, of course, get to be able to engage with the other videos, including some classes that we have got going, which have a wealth of resources. There is the website, oneinfinite.com, as well as a Twitter, where we are not very engaged. However, these are 3 ways for you to connect and to stay engaged. And we recommend that you please subscribe so that we get to improve the content and the vichar that comes from Gurbani, so we can all collaborate in Gurmat. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.